This is Michael Woodward, and this is Season 2, Episode 32 of the Jumble Think Podcast.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Jumble Think Podcast. We explore the ideas and dreams behind some of the leading entrepreneurs from around the world. Along the way, we will give you some tips and ideas of how you can chase your own big ideas and dreams and change the world around you. Our guest on today's episode is Jim Akers. More about Jim in a moment. On Thursday's episode, I'm going to be sharing on how to overcome disappointment as an entrepreneur. In the episode, I'm going to share some personal stories along with giving you some tips and actions you can take to overcome those moments of disappointment. Now let's jump into today's episode with Jim Akers. Hey there, welcome to the Jumble Think Podcast. My name is Michael Woodward. I am your host and very excited to have you along for today's episode. Before we get rolling on today's episode, I want to encourage you, wherever you're listening to this podcast, click that subscribe button. If you are listening through jumblethink.com, I want to encourage you, go on over to Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts, find the Jumble Think Podcast and click the subscribe button there. That way you never miss an episode of the Jumble Think Podcast. Our guest on today's episode is Jim Akers. It's super fun to have him back. He was a guest in Season 1 and brought a lot of incredible insights into the world of entrepreneurship and being a dreamer and big ideas. And today he's back to give us more insights. So let's learn a little bit more about Jim Akers.
Hi, my name is Jim Akers, and I am the president and founder of Clarity to Win, and we help people clarify and win at the things that matter most to them. My business is focused on leadership, coaching, and supporting people find the things that are most important, pursue those, and achieve in ways that they might not have found possible otherwise. My big idea and dream started when I was really young. I think I always knew that I wanted to be a coach, and coaching evolved into leadership, and I've been doing it since I was 16. I find purpose and fulfillment in what I do by seeing people truly have breakthroughs, breaking through fear, doubt, disappointment, and realizing that they've got a whole lot more potential that they can tap if they'll just look deeper inside themselves. What I do matters because I think everybody strives for and wants what they do to matter. And every time that I get to work with somebody and they realize that, they see it and they have the breakthrough, it just brings a tremendous amount of joy and satisfaction, not only to them, but to me as well. The challenge I'm trying to overcome in my own business is leverage in the sense of how do I scale and reach and touch more lives. The next big goal I have for my business is to reach 100 clients that I am coaching and working with on a personal basis.
We'll be right back with the interview portion of our conversation with Jim Akers in a moment. So you have big ideas and dreams, but you feel a little stuck, or you don't know what the next step is that you should take. Jumble Think is here to help you. Of course, we've got our awesome podcast, which you're listening to right now. But did you know that at jumblethink.com, we have some incredible resources for you? You can check out some of our recommended reading. You can also find free guides you can download. You can find some amazing resources to help you get your podcast started. But you can also start the conversation with us to help you on that journey of chasing your big idea and dream. No matter your big idea and dream, the team at Jumblethink wants to see you make it a reality. So swing on over to jumblethink.com and check out some of our resources to help you on that journey to chase your big idea and dream and change the world around you. Now let's jump into the interview portion of our conversation with Jim Akers. My guest today is Jim Akers. You may remember him from Season 1, one of my favorite guests, and just all around great guy. Jim, thanks for coming back and being a part of Season 2.
It's awesome to be here, Michael. I really loved your show, and it was such an honor and privilege to be here once, to be here twice. I'm blessed. Thank you.
Well, before we dive into our interview, I want to make sure that people right up front, maybe they want to start doing some research, checking out what you're doing. How can they find you?
Best way is to go to jimdakers.com. Primary website, everything funnels through there.
Well, it has been an interesting year for both of us. Last time we talked about all the exciting things you're going. You've grown your business. You're in a pivot. You got some really cool online coaching tools and curriculums coming out. We're going to dive into all of that, of course. But first off, tell us a little bit about this move from Tape Breakers to Clarity to Win.
Tape Breakers released about a year ago. Michael, I was on your show.
Yeah.
And that was fantastic. We were #1 new release on Amazon, which some of your listeners were involved with and reading and supporting the book. So that was really cool. But I think what happened from a pivot perspective was the book became a platform. People started reading what I was doing, reaching back out to me. So it created a lot of one-on-one interaction. From greater coaching, people wanting coaching, mentoring, and leadership. And so it's a natural progression of putting a thought out there, putting some good ideas out there, and people responding, which has been really cool.
How are some of the stories that you've heard? What have they been about?
I think the stories have largely been about ordinary people figuring out how to live extraordinary lives. I had someone recently reach out to me, and they said, the first chapter absolutely brought me to tears. What was the essence of that? You might recall, Michael, and some of your listeners too, it's a story about my dad. And I spent 5 days in ICU with him, and the day I left, I remember he couldn't talk, couldn't communicate. I remember reaching out, grabbing his hand. I just knew it was the last time that I was going to see him. And the essence of that was, and we won't steal the story here talking today because we'll make that available to your readers, that first chapter. But what I learned, my dad was a really ordinary guy. Really tough background, more heartbreak than anybody should have experienced before the age of 21. And he lived an extraordinary life because he just poured into his family. He had his priorities straight. Biggest takeaway, people reading that and thinking, God, I got to be famous, or I got to have this big win, or I got to get this house, or I got to do this, and recognizing that impact that we have is right in front of us with the people that are part of our family and our business, and how am I pouring into them? And my dad was just an incredible example that I didn't really recognize until, I was much older.
Yeah, it's a really cool story. And if you haven't read Tape Breakers yet and you're listening, definitely check it out. It's a cool book. You talked about, how that was an unlikely source of clarity for you, and how that really set you up for finding kind of a path forward. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was wildly ambitious as a kid. I don't know why, but it was just, I had to win at everything. It wasn't always pretty. I was one of those kids. If I wasn't playing a board game, if I wasn't winning, that means just move the board, shift the board, start over. But I was incredibly ambitious. And I didn't think my dad had a lot of ambition. He worked hard, always worked, former military, and he was always purposeful. But I just didn't think he had these big ambitions. And then later on, just kind of discovering, his sister was killed when he was a teenager. His brother died of rheumatic fever. He lost his very best friend in a car accident. He had just a lot of these heartbreaks that happened to him. And so I just think he was ambitious. I thought he was just kind of wasting time. But what I didn't recognize was that what was most important to him was right in front of him: his faith, his family, pouring into people. And it dawned on me, Michael, is that I had to prepare for his funeral. And I stood up at the church and I was overwhelmed because I didn't think he knew that many people. The place was overflowing. It was crazy.
Wow.
I said, man, how did he do that? He just poured into people and was always willing to give more than he took.
Wow.
And that was different for me because I was always willing to take more than I gave, which, I grew up in that house, but it took me a long time to learn. And I think that was the probably the most significant learning. And I had to learn it as an adult. I wish I would have recognized it a lot younger.
Well, you said something interesting there to me, which was you talked about how you viewed him one way and then you experienced him in a new way, and it changed your perspective. I think for many of us in our own stories, in our own experiences, whether it's looking at a parent or looking at coworkers or people we have as employees or whatever that is for us, we often see them through a jaded perspective, a filtered perspective based on us. instead of seeing them for who they really are. This experience with your dad and other experiences along your journey, how have they helped you view people differently?
I think you have to take a big step back.
Okay.
I was preparing a couple months ago. I was invited to speak, and the topic ended up being compassion as a leader.
Yeah.
Well, the number one reason people follow a leader is compassion.
Okay.
That they're compassionate. So I started researching and looking at this work. And the thing that dawned on me, Michael, is I think everyone that we meet has two things going on. One, there's more going on in their life than they ever want to admit.
Yeah.
And the second thing is a good percentage of us have something so big, so large, weighing on us that it could devastate and destroy us. And we walk by people every day. They say that we'll have between 80 and 100,000 unique interactions with with somebody over the course of our lifetime.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And think about that one of those two things are going on. It changed my whole perspective. I look at people, the one person that cuts you off driving down the road, who knows what's happening in their life at that moment? We think it's about us because they cut us off, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They might not even, I think most of them didn't even know you were there.
So true. That's so true.
So
you've had an interesting journey. We've talked about that a little bit, but so much of our podcast is focused on people and encouraging them on dreams, unexpected journeys, stepping into the unknown. For you, Tape Breakers is a milestone. It's something that you've achieved. That's really, really a lot of fun to see that happen. But so a lot of people are listening and they might be thinking, oh, okay, this guy, he must have always had a passion for writing, or it must have easily come to him, When did this dream of being an author or writing this book, how did that come to be?
Well, that is a great question, because I don't know about you or a lot of your listeners, but when I was in grade school, when English came up, I was the one that was staring out the window.
Right.
I didn't get it.
Right.
Probably didn't have appreciation for language. I like to talk, but I didn't like to write. And probably put this in context, Michael, one of the first things that I wrote a number of years ago was a book on breakthrough performance.
Okay.
And my oldest son is a lawyer.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Gifted in the language, understands language. And I said, hey, Matthew, would you mind proofing this for me? He goes, yeah, sure, Dad.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in my office, and a few hours later, he comes in, he says, Dad, do you know what a comma is for? I said, sure. It just slows down really smart people. And he looked at me and he's just shaking his head. He goes, oh my gosh, Dad, did you not pay attention when you were a kid? I said, no, Matthew, but can you fix it for me? And, it's one of those things that commas are significant. Lots of things in language are significant. So no, I had no idea being an author. The dream part of this, Michael, was how do you have an impact on people? How do you be an encourager? How do you give them tools, things that I'd learned over 25 years in senior leadership in corporate America,
right.
Doing a lot of one-on-one executive coaching, watching people struggle, dealing with my own failures and recognizing those things. How do I put that in a context that I can pass along? Yeah. And that was the genesis of Tape Breakers.
Wow. Wow.
And it does have commas too. I do have some commas in there.
Yeah, and it's exciting to see something that you go, I have a message to share. I have important things, whether it's from the corporate world or your personal life, to share, and then to see that become so well received must just be really encouraging to you.
It really is, and it's scary.
Okay.
I think anytime any of us step out and we do something, you step out into the world, you're going to have critics.
Yeah.
And I think that, and you've had part of this journey, you and I've talked about this before, is that three things to be true.
Yeah.
It's going to take longer than you think.
Right.
It's going to cost you more than you think.
Yep.
And you're going to have more critics than you think.
Absolutely.
And I think those things scare us off.
Yeah.
So instead of kind of venturing out and saying, hey, let's go do that, we just say, no, I'm just going to pack this away.
Right.
I'm going to wait for another day.
Right.
And maybe the best of us then never gets shared.
Yeah. How do we really push past those things, those fears, those obstacles? Like, what are some of the things that you had to do in your journey to see that happen?
I think one of the biggest things is just not looking at a scoreboard all the time.
Right.
We're conditioned to keep score.
Right.
From a really young age, right? You get grades. Does my grade measure up? Does my boyfriend or girlfriend measure up? Does my car measure up? All these things we do on a comparative basis.
Okay.
And man, I was good at that. And it's killer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's killer,
Yeah.
right? Because every time you reach one point, there's always something else you could do. There's always something more.
Right.
So it's part of balancing that dissatisfaction of not thinking that I have to keep score. Failure doesn't have to define me. And I know that sounds cliche to a lot of listeners, but we let it define us because it ends up building barriers to us stepping out.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the biggest changes, and it's happened over a lot of years, is not looking at things as being a grade or a pinnacle,
Right.
but just a stepping stone. Okay, this is where I am today. How do I get a little better today? How do I take a positive step forward?
Right. Right. And early on in this episode, you've already shared about, like, you came from a culture where sports were important to you, and performing and achieving and winning were part of your DNA. And I think in Western culture, American culture specifically, that drive to do your best, to always succeed, to win big is so bred into who we are as a culture. How can we start defining success in a healthy way, instead of by achievements, but maybe into impact, or maybe into changing that false belief that we must win and succeed at everything, and realize that when we do fail, when things don't go the right way we want, that it doesn't have to devastate us, that we can continue on our journey and see another amazing breakthrough down the road?
Oh, that's a great question. I love what Winston Churchill once said. I think it goes something like this: success consists of going from failure to failure without the loss of enthusiasm.
Okay.
So how do I keep pushing forward? And when I'm coaching, I find more and more you have to focus on process.
Yeah.
Just had this conversation with somebody the other day. If you get a result, it was a culmination of a process. For example, if we went into the kitchen, my wife's a great baker. She bakes chocolate chip cookies, right? She has a recipe.
Okay.
She knows if she gets the ingredients right and does the right things, she's going to produce another great batch of chocolate chip cookies. It's process.
Right.
If the ingredients aren't right or something gets missed, you get a bad result. But it's not final. You just go back and you look at the process. I'm always coaching and working with people on the process.
Right.
What got us this outcome?
Right.
And then going back and say, how do I deconstruct the process? What things can I get better at?
Right.
What do I need to get better at in terms of producing a better result? Not for somebody else to consume, but because I just want to be as good as I can be, as authentic as I can be in any given moment or pursuit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. In this journey, one of the things that's significant in your story is the importance of others. You talk about your dad in that story of how you perceived him versus that change, and then how that's impacted you moving forward. You talk about your son and editing the book and looking at it and helping you along that journey. People are significant for our journey forward, whether it's to achieve the next big startup or whether it's just to be a successful parent. The support of others is so powerful. And when we look at coaching or mentoring or leadership, all of these things intertwine, and we have this need for each other. Tell us a little bit about why, if we want to be successful people, if we want to be people living life well, why we really need to be looking to each other.
Oh, what a great question, a great point, Michael. I think number one, we were created for community.
Yeah.
We were created to run alone.
So agree with that.
Right? So we need others around us. Now, some can be positive, some can be negative.
Right.
And you have to discern that.
Yeah.
But I think it's relational.
Okay.
If you were to ask me what my greatest failings in life were, I would almost all point to things that were relational.
Okay.
Because they keep going on.
Yeah.
Right? I can lose a baseball game. I can lose a sale. I can lose a business opportunity, but relationships go on.
Okay.
And so I think it's a question that you always look at: how much did I give versus what I get?
Yeah.
And I was a taker. I make no bones about it. I mean, as I strove for whatever I was trying to get to, Most of my failings would all relate to relationships that I could have managed better.
Okay.
The evolution has been, as I've recognized your incredible point about the other, is that you can't go where you want to go on your own.
Right.
You can't get there.
Right.
You can't get there as a parent. You can't get there as a leader. You can't get there in any arena. You can't get and become as effective, as masterful, as excellent in any role running on your own.
Right.
You need coaches, mentors, and leaders to help you.
Right. All right. So you mentioned in there, it's the whole idea of bad company corrupts good morals, good company sets you up for success. The people that are around you impact you in such a deep way. How can we start assessing the people around us and how we can have, one, healthy relationships, but also how we can start choosing the right crowd we want to be in, how we can be in around the right people to encourage our dreams, encourage our ideas, encourage the achievements that we're striving for? How can we start hanging in the right tribe, the right community that builds us up and challenges us when we need to be challenged and encourages us when things are down? How can we start really getting into that healthy place of community?
Well, the first thing is we shouldn't fire our spouses.
Good point. I agree with that. Yeah.
I think, we look at, it starts at home and
Right.
say, how do I pour into the people in my life
Okay.
so that I have a healthy relationship,
Right.
with spouses, kids, etc.
Yeah.
Holding them accountable in one sense, but how do I build that around my home, and then how do I take that out? And I remember having a conversation with a young man, was doing a really good job at a number of areas of his life, high ambition. And he was pointing out to me, describing some things that were going on, and they were all relational.
Okay.
But they were all friends.
Yeah.
Okay. They were all people that he had a choice whether he associated with or not. And I remember getting to the end of the conversations and saying to him, it sounds to me like you need to fire some friends.
Yeah.
Because it's really a battle for our thoughts.
Yeah.
Michael, I truly believe this. We can only rise as to the level of our thoughts.
Yeah.
We get these self-limiting beliefs, and you're going to have more people that are going to question and doubt you than they are going to pour into you.
Yeah. That's good.
I defy anyone to tell me that they've got more people around them that are pumping them up than taking them down. And there's research. A professor out of North Carolina studied this and found that only 20% of us get enough encouragement every day.
Wow.
Only 1 in 5 of us get enough encouragement.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So think about this. Encouragement, those areas of leadership, whether it be in the home or business, are considered soft skills, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if it's a soft skill, why is it so hard?
Good question. Yeah.
Right? It's hard because we have things that pull on us, can affect our mood, can affect our outlook, affect our perspective.
Right.
And when we're not on our game, we're much less likely to be pouring out encouragement because we're looking for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the vast majority of us, life is hard.
Right.
We got more withdrawals happening than deposits. So it's not surprising that only 1 in 5 get enough encouragement.
Okay.
And you parallel that in another study, and I think they joined together. Only 25% of Americans today consider themselves to be flourishing.
Wow.
And 4.
That's really not great at all.
You think there's a correlation?
Right.
So your question was, how do we bring people in? One, I think you have to do an assessment. I'll have people do this all the time.
Okay.
Tell me the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
Are they givers or takers? And if you have 5 of the people you spend the most time with that you think are takers, take more of your intellectual, emotional, physical energy,
Okay.
guess what? You're going to end up on the negative side of the scale.
Right.
So you better have somebody that you have that is pouring into you, is that source of that encouragement. And it doesn't define your outcomes, but just says, hey, guess what? This is where you're at today. How do I help you take a positive step forward?
Right. Right.
Have you ever had the experience, Michael, where somebody, you had something bad and somebody wants to critique it for you?
Yeah. Happens all the time.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right? They critique it. They tell you what you did wrong.
Yeah.
But who would we migrate to? This is the point of your question. We want to migrate. I want to find that person that I can just be authentic with and say,
Yeah.
guess what?
Yeah.
I did A, B, and C, D.
Yeah.
I really screwed this up.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work out well. And they look at you and say, I understand. I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do next?
Right.
How can I help you?
Right.
Man, you need those people.
Right. So we've got our community, and our community could look like, of course, our family. That's significant, and I think the foundation that we have to really look at. But then beyond our family, we've got our church, maybe sports groups that our family is involved with, whether it's our kids or ourselves. We've got other levels of community, whether that's business organizations, that kind of thing. But going deeper, those communities are awesome, and they're good. But often we need that advocate that's sitting in our corner, that's watching out for us, that's honest with us, that's challenging with us through those situations, whether good or bad, whether it's a startup or whether it's a failure. We need those people, those coaches, those mentors, those leaders. Let's talk about just that, coaches, mentoring, and leadership in the journey of an entrepreneur, as a journey of a business owner, why we really need to start tapping into this resource to get to the next level.
That's a great question. I think one of the biggest things is if you just think today, there will be more information put up on the internet than there are volumes in the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. in one day.
Right. That's craziness.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So think about it in the sense that if I'm going along and you think how many different things I might need expertise in to run a business, be a great parent,
Right.
be a good student, whatever the case may be, if I rely just on myself, I can't consume it all. I can't sort it all out. It would be impossible.
Right. Right.
So coaches, mentors, and great leaders, I believe, help people fill in those gaps
Right.
and help them be expert in a domain that you might not be expert in.
Right.
Ask for help, and you can go twice as fast
Right.
as if you try to learn it all on your own.
Yeah.
But I think we're reticent. We're reticent to ask for help because people we're trained and conditioned to have answers from a
Right.
very young age.
Right. Well, and let's go a little bit deeper on that. I mean, coaches and mentors, they seem very similar. Leaders, whether it's in a corporation, that seems a little different. Leaders are on the broader sense. What is the difference between a good coach, a good mentor, and a solid or great leader?
Well, I think of it as a three-legged stool because I think the ultimate is that the best have all three of those components. But a coach is somebody that's driven to help you attain a specific outcome.
Okay.
I.e., I'm a student, I'm struggling in geometry, get a tutor in geometry.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to coach you to that specific outcome.
Right.
If you're in business and you have a revenue issue and you need sales advice, find a sales guru or somebody that understands that domain and can help you there.
Okay.
As example, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
A mentor, I believe, is somebody that develops and equips a person
Okay.
for the longer journey.
Yeah.
It's that person that is that sounding board. Sometimes, like you might think, that grandfatherly influence. They're just wise.
Okay. Yeah.
Really powerful if you get that coach and mentor in the same place, because I may
Yeah.
be coaching you towards a specific outcome, but there's lots of things that go into that, and I may be able to assist you. And that gets then into the leadership piece. And leadership is about taking people to places they can't go on their own.
Okay.
Think about in a business, not everyone can run a business.
Right.
Not
Right.
everyone can lead employees, but they'll follow somebody that has a vision.
Right.
They'll follow somebody who says, guys, I'd like to go there. I'd like to be part of that culture. I'd like to be part of that outcome. I can't get there, but I'm going to follow Michael because Michael can take me there.
Right. Right.
And I think that's what leadership does. That's what Jumble Think does for me when I think about the people that you bring forward on your show, is that they have visions. They get you to think in ways you wouldn't have thought on your own, and
Yeah.
put you in environments and situations where you can succeed.
Yeah. And for you, you've been a coach for several years now, worked with people in the business sphere. How did you get into it? And who's helped you on your journey of that discovery too?
My first interest in coaching was actually Little League. If
Okay.
you can believe that. Age 16, I had my first Little League coaching managerial assignment.
Okay.
And it wasn't because I pursued it. It's because I needed a summer job. The parents came to me and said, if you'll coach the Little League team, one of the dads can get you a job. And boy, I needed a job that summer.
Right. I think I remember that from our first season.
Did we talk about that?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny that was the case. But then in business, what ended up happening is I just have had this thirst pursuit of achievement, trying to figure out what makes it tick. So I had left my first corporate job was with Owens Corning.
Okay.
A lot of success. They wanted to move me to Toledo, Ohio. My wife said, you can pump gas in Southern California before I'm moving to Toledo.
Yeah.
So I switched jobs and I took a 100% commission selling job.
Wow.
But at that time, Michael, think about this. I had just finished an MBA.
Mm-hmm.
I had all this training. I had great sales success at Owens Corning. And I come into this distribution environment, relatively small company, $250 million. And all they cared about was that you sold.
Right.
So there's a young man that they hired to sell, and I started working with him.
Okay.
And about 6 months later, he went from the worst salesperson to one of the better salespeople.
Okay.
And so my phone rings, and it's the owner of the company. He wants to meet with me. I'm thinking, gosh, I'm in trouble. And I go in there and talk to him, and he starts talking to me about John's progress and what I did.
Yeah.
Well, that led me to be a vice president of sales for this organization at the age of 29.
Wow.
He liked what I was doing, liked what I was coaching. So the moral of the story is find the son-in-law of the owner and work with them, because that'll help you a lot, right?
That's funny.
John was the owner's son-in-law.
Wow.
But that's when I really knew that was in my blood, in my DNA, is that not only could I do certain things, but I had a thirst for sharing that and helping people achieve.
And as a coach, what kind of guides you? What kind of helped you along that journey of coaching? Because I'm sure that there are times in which you have to approach situations that are maybe you have to challenge somebody that you're working with. Maybe you have to encourage them in a situation that seems hopeless. I mean, what guides you through those moments?
Fundamentally, people want what they do to matter.
Yeah.
You want what you do to matter.
Yeah.
I want what I do to matter. And if you peel everything back and you really get at the hardest stuff, wherever people are, especially people that are stuck, they know that what they're going to do, they want it to matter, but they just can't get rid of all the stuff that's holding them back. Maybe it's doubt, maybe it's disappointment, maybe it's past failure, maybe they worked for somebody that didn't care about them, whatever the case may be. But I think we all have striving and aspirational things. I always like to say God places dreams on our hearts. It's up to us to act on them.
Yeah, I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
And what holds us back?
Yeah.
So we have this fear, and I think that's what coaches do. They put us in positions that challenge us, get us to stretch beyond our comfort zone, learn new things, and then capability expands, builds confidence. And I think that's what great coaching does in a specific instance, what great mentoring does, because it creates an environment that allows people to take what they learn then in one specific setting and apply it elsewhere, because those are transferable. And if you've got it all together, then I think that's the essence of what great leaders look like.
That's so powerful. Before we kind of wrap up this segment, I want to make sure that we talk about this new journey you're on with Clarity to Win. Tell us a little bit about that, what the new program's about, and why you're kind of this new journey, what it's all about, and how you kind of knew that it was time to transition into this.
Well, in the last year, I've done a lot of executive coaching.
Okay.
And with these folks, and my business background certainly puts me in a position to do that.
Yeah.
But as I started working down organizations, I've always loved working with the folks that weren't for lack of a better word, the elite, the chosen, the ones that were in the corner office, right?
Right.
And that's my blue collar background. That's my dad. Go ask the person that's sweeping the floor what they're doing.
Yeah.
That was my dad, NCO, non-commissioned officer for a career in the military, which is hard to do.
Right.
That was my background.
Yeah.
So my experience is there was a lot of people that wanted help, but they couldn't afford to pay somebody, $1,000 to $1,500 an hour to do it.
Yeah.
They'd like to hire me. They couldn't afford me,
Right.
right? So the essence of it is what could I do to create an environment that allow people to come in, get the coaching, mentoring that they needed, and do it in a way that allowed me to create leverage and increase my reach.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is the platform to do that.
So cool. So how can people find this new program and what will they get from it?
Well, thank you for asking that, Michael. One, I've got a master class video that we just produced.
Oh, cool.
And it's called The One Secret the Highest Achievers Use to Overcome Doubts, Fears, and Failures to Turn an Ordinary Life into an Extraordinary Life.
Okay.
Okay. And it's available to the Jumble Think audience, all of your listeners. All they need to do is text Jumble Think, all one word, to 33444.
Cool.
So in that place where your recipient is, type in 33444 in your message, type Jumble Think, and you'll have an opportunity to get access to that video.
Cool.
So that's a starting point.
Yeah.
And what we are going to provide is group coaching and some individual coaching for 6 months to a year. And then we've got a 7-week online video content program that focuses on helping people get structured in ways of process to focus on what they need to do and then support them on that journey. So it's a leverage opportunity to reach more people.
Right. And you've got a great Facebook group. You've got some other website stuff like jimakers.com. What are some other ways people can connect with you, whether it's about the new Clarity to Win program or on a broader sense?
Well, always welcome individual inquiries. So the email's easy now because it's Jim D. I always use a D in there because I guess my mom gave it to me, so I did that. Jim D. Akers at claritytowin.com.
Right.
My book obviously is out there on Amazon, also on Audible. You can follow me on Twitter. It's easy to find those as well. And on Facebook right now, there's a Clarity to Win Facebook group, and you're free to join that.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to continue to post content with the idea of helping people clarify and win at the things that are most important to them, things that matter.
Very cool. We will be back with Jim Akers and our rapid fire questions. You have big ideas and dreams, and you have some fears about chasing them. Jumble Think has 2 free guides to help you. The first one is how to know when you've found your big dream. And our second guide is called Overcoming the Unknown. You can get both of the guides completely for free for swinging on over to jumblethink.com/guide. That's jumblethink.com/guide to download your free guides. Now let's jump into rapid fire questions with Jim Akers. We're back with Jim Akers. Jim, are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
If you're going to be gentle, I'm ready.
Oh, I don't know if we can do that, but I'll try to be, soft-gloved with this. So the first question is, what is one tip you'd give someone with a big idea or dream and they don't know where to start?
Start.
I love it.
Take one small step. You don't have to figure it out all at once.
Right.
Figure out the next best step.
Right.
And take that.
Right.
Start small, but keep moving.
Love it. Agree with that. Second question is, what is one change you'd like to see in the world?
Kindness and love. I think love solves most everything.
Yeah.
And I think if we had softer hearts and more compassion, we would see great change in the world.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I finished strong in the sense that the people who were most important to me knew they were most important to me, and I gave them my best every day.
Oh, so good. Where do you find inspiration?
I think there's a variety of things, but it's all grounded in faith. My inspiration is that when it's all over, I know the Lord is there, has done what he has done for me and anybody else who is looking for that truth. So I have no doubt about what I do every day, that in the end, it's rewarded.
What is one book you think every dreamer or entrepreneur should read, and why?
Ooh, one book. There's so many. I'm not sure I have an answer to that one, Michael, in terms of one book. I think some of the best books that I've read, there's just so many.
Yeah.
Holy Ambition by Chip Ingram.
Okay.
21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell,
All right.
The Traveler's Gift
Oh, I've not heard of that one.
by Andy Andrews,
Okay.
Finish Well by Bob Buford.
Okay.
Those would be good starts.
What is one tool that is significant for the success of your business?
I'm not sure I'd put it as a tool that, it's not something you can buy, but ask questions.
That's good.
The most powerful tool that we have is our ability to be curious
Yeah.
and ask questions. If we're willing to do that, I think we can learn faster and uncover what we need to know.
What is one habit you find helpful in your life as an entrepreneur?
Scheduling 3 buckets of time: content development, business development, personal development. I schedule those out and I hold to those schedules,
Okay.
and which allows me to build a higher degree of focus
Okay.
and be more productive.
All right. Start talking about kind of like those scheduling your time. How do you start and finish your day?
Start my day in prayer, meditation, study. Conclude my day reading.
If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what do you think you'd be doing?
Might be what I'd want to be doing. I'd be playing golf.
Okay. All right. I learned something new. I don't remember knowing that you were a golfer. So that's pretty cool.
Love to golf.
Oh, very fun. And what is one dream you're still wanting to fulfill in your own life?
I think the biggest dream is multiplying the number of people that are touched by the work that I do.
Very, very cool. As we wrap up today's episode, what's one last thought you want to leave us with today?
I think the biggest thought is adopt the mantra to finish strong.
Okay.
To understand that the vast majority of people don't finish strong. They fall off at some point.
Okay.
Level of interest, enthusiasm wanes.
Okay.
Is that run through the tape. Every day is a gift.
Yeah.
And I remember I spoke, crazy Michael, but I spoke to a group of folks. There couldn't have been anyone in the room under the age of 75.
Okay.
And I said, there's still a purpose. As long as you're breathing, there's still a purpose. There's something. It may not be as grandiose as when you were 25 or 35,
Right.
but somebody needs who you are and what you are today. Could be a grandchild, could be a spouse, could be a friend, but finish strong, and that means day by day.
Wow. Love that. Jim, it's always great to chat with you. And thanks so much for coming back and giving us some amazing insights and encouragement on our journey. Really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, Michael, and encouraged by the invitation to be back. Thanks so much.
Once again, we want to thank today's guest, Jim Akers, for taking time out and sharing his story. You can find the resources that Jim mentioned along with his links in the episode notes. I want to encourage you, take a moment today to think about that big idea and dream you have and start coming up with a plan to make it a reality. Make one step, any step, to move that big idea and dream forward and make it a reality. Ultimately, it's my belief that the world needs you more than ever before to be that unique individual with great ideas. So get out there, do something, and start changing the world around you.
Les mères de famille, les enfants peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps. Vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.